Hey everyone! Welcome to the fourth session of Introduction to Big Data, wherein we will be discussing what big data is. Before we get started, as I always say, if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, do subscribe to get the notification about my latest uploads. Well then, let's get started with the session. In the previous sessions, we learned what is data, different varieties of data, how data evolved over the years, and we ended the last session seeing what were the problems that the technologists were facing. In this session, we will take the first problem out of that, which is, what terminology should be used to represent the user and digital era data. Let's start with the crux of our entire topic, what is big data? Straight and simple answer is, it's nothing but data, which shows certain characteristics. Let's try to understand with an example. We know what are polygons. They are nothing but two-dimensional shapes formed with straight lines. Now, if a polygon is four-sided, with all sides of equal length, 90-degree angles between the sides, and opposite sides parallel, then it is called as a square. Or, to rephrase, square is a polygon, which shows certain characteristics like four equal sides, with opposites parallel, having 90 degrees between the sides. Similarly, data, which is raw facts figures, when it satisfies certain characteristics like volume, velocity, variety, veracity, is called as big data. This volume, velocity, variety and veracity are usually referred to as the 4 V's of big data. Here, I have only listed down the characteristics, but not the qualifying factors. Like, for square, the characteristic is sides, while the qualifying factors are 4, equal, parallel, opposite, angle is the characteristic, and its qualifying factor is 90 degrees. The 4 V's listed also have their qualifying factors, which are huge for volume, high for velocity, different for variety, and high for veracity. So, to reiterate, data, which is nothing but raw facts figures, when satisfies the conditions of being huge in volume, high in velocity, containing different varieties, and has high veracity, is called as big data. Now, let's understand more about these V's. Volume is the amount of data. We are using the word huge along with it, because, back in 2002, when big data broke into the scene, GBs of data was a huge thing. As technology grew, GBs and TBs have become to a state of not being considered as huge volume. As of now, PB, which is petabytes, is considered to be huge volume. Down the line in future, as technology grows further, maybe petabytes will also become not that huge. And then we might move to calling EB, exabytes, as huge. The data volume has to be in at least PBs to satisfy the condition of being referred to as big data. Next one, velocity means the rate at which data is being generated. Please keep in mind that velocity doesn't mean data transfer rate, but the data generation rate. Data generation happens two ways: one, when we edit the existing data, and the next, when we create new data altogether. The data generation should be at very high rate, and hence, we say high velocity. Why the word velocity is used rather than speed, I think, is because of two reasons, which are, insertion and deletion. Both can be considered as data generation, and, out of that, deletion reduces data, while insertion increases the data, thereby having negative and positive data generation. The second reason is to have the word start with V, to match with other V's. The next V is the variety. As we have already discussed in the previous sessions, different varieties mean the structured, unstructured and semi-structured data. All these three different varieties should be present as to satisfy the data to be called as big data. Veracity literally means the accuracy, but in the context of big data, it means how trustworthy the data is. Whether the collected data is from a trustable source, and hence, is it accurate to be considered for analysis. The veracity level of the data has to be very high. So, to summarize, data, which is of huge volume, in PBs, and which is generated at very high velocity, and which has all the different varieties, and has high level of veracity is called as big data. Note that, I use the conjunction as, and, in between the conditions, which means, all of these conditions have to be satisfied to call the data as big data. If any one of these conditions is not met, theoretically, the data is not supposed to be referred to as big data. As and when industry started to adopt big data, more V's got added to the list. So, let's see all the relevant V's of big data. In addition to volume, variety, velocity, and veracity, which we have already discussed, We also have value, which refers to whether the data is valuable to the organization, visualization, how data can be represented to the user, vulnerability, can we keep the data safe, volatility, how often the data changes, viability, is the data relevant to the use case at hand, and, the last one, virality, which is how quickly the data gets dispersed across the people. One more V, which is viscosity, is also present, which represents the resistance to the flow of data. Viscosity and virality can be considered to be going hand in hand. Now, we have a solution to the first problem, a new term that can be used to describe the user era and digital era data, which is big data. Before we wrap up the session, let's also take a look into the top domains where big data is getting applied extensively. This includes almost all the major industries like healthcare, education, finance, marketing, and so on. Almost all the domains uses big data in one way or the other. This concludes the fourth session. Thank you for watching, and if you find this video insightful, like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel.